Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest, a repeat guest, and also being an author with us, is Michaela Gaffen Stone. Today, we're going to be talking about her new book, The Aligned and Unapologetic, the Human Design Guidebook. Gosh, we need a lot of help in our design, I think, at the present moment, because we're all very, very confused. She says, discover the freedom of living your true self, aligned, empowered, and unapologetically you. This is a guidebook, and it is your clear, compassionate transformation introduction to human design systems. Whether you're brand new to this powerful modality or seeking a deeper understanding of your Bodygraph, this is a guidebook that will walk you through your core principles with heart, clarity, and purpose. Blending ancient wisdom with modern science, Human Design reveals how your energy is uniquely wired to navigate life, relationships, and decision-making. This guide breaks it all down: energy types, strategies, authority profiles, and more, so you can begin living your design instead of chasing someone else's. We're going to be talking about the 5 types and the Bodygraph centers and protocols using your strategy, and gentle reminders that you are never meant to fit into somebody else's mold, and encouragement to trust yourself, your rhythm, and your natural gifts. As I said, she was an author on Our Forgotten Children book, which was a beautiful chapter and very, very powerful, which I invite you to go to, theorchardofwisdom.ca, and look Our Forgotten Children, and you will see she is right there with all the shows that she's done with us in the past, as well as her contribution to the book as well. So definitely an author family. I've interviewed her husband as well, who's a fictional writer. So, I can imagine these two. The typewriter is busy writing away. It just keeps pouring out of you both. So both incredible creatives. But you've been working on this book for a while, haven't you, Michaela?
I have. It has taken a long time to put together because human design, as you said, is complex. And the reason I put it together was because I do coaching using human design. It's one of the modalities that I work with. And I found people were asking me the same questions over and over, from one person to the next. And I thought, if this is going to keep coming up, maybe I should put it in a book and then people can access it. And so the idea with the book is that you literally mark off the parts that are relevant to you based on your body graph. And right away, I'm going to say my heads up to people is use a sticky note and use one color. Don't get fancy with the colors because you're going to do your chart and then you might want to do your partners or your kids or somebody significant in your life. So you see how your energy interacts with theirs. And it really does. I mean, we all know that person who, when you're in their environment, you behave differently, you feel different, or someone who behaves differently in certain company. And that may have caused you to question, what's up with them? Why do they do that?
Yeah.
Chances are their centers are defined by that other person being there and vice versa. And it does change how they show up. Like it
Mm-hmm.
literally does. And they can't help that.
No,
It's
no.
part of how their design shifts and changes.
I'm 100% advocate for knowing who we are as a human cell, because that our interaction, our perception, the way we look at life, the way we interact with life is on the human design. And then we have what I call the spiritual design, the divine design. And you can't really understand your divine design until you understand the human design. And I think the more and more we actually understand of why we do, what makes us tick, how we think about things, the better we are to actually broaden our understanding of everything else.
Well, human design encompasses so much. So,
Hmm.
you know that thing that you can do that's just effortless. It's easy for you. So much so that when someone comments on it, you're likely to say, "Well, it's not a big deal. You know, anybody can do this." And that's not actually true.
Absolutely.
You
Hmm.
can do this. And that is perfect example of you in alignment. It's you in your flow. When we get into difficulties is when other people come in with the best of intentions quite often, saying things like, "Oh, you need to do this or you need to go there. This job makes sense. That next move is logical." Well, that's great, but it's not you.
Yeah.
It's their lens, it's their perspective, and it's external information. It doesn't mean anything about you, it means everything about them. But
Hmm.
we're used to people telling us,
Yeah.
well, you need to do this and it should look like that. But when you have words like need, must, should,
Hmm.
ought, all those are very sort of pressure words. And if those are coming up, then that's a really good indication that this isn't about you. You
Right.
don't need
Right.
to do that. And we go wrong when we try.
I like that you put unapologetic in the book because we are have been conditioned to be apologizing for not being what somebody else wants us to be,
Yes.
right?
People pleasers.
Oh,
People
and
pleasers.
it's become its own little pandemic in a way because we're so busy trying to please people and fit in, not rock the boat. Am I recognized? If I bend into a pretzel, do you see me now? And it's chasing the exterior life, which we know, right, really just looking at it is incredibly dysfunctional. So why do we want to be a part of that? Why can't we embrace the beauty that lies within and is just waiting to show itself?
Well, we frequently mix up fitting in and belonging. And we think we want to fit in, but
Hmm.
we don't. You
Hmm.
don't want to fit in. You want to belong. You want to feel like you are a part of the human tribe, which is a basic human need. We all need to feel that way. I mean, people want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be recognized and accepted.
Yes.
It's a bigger deal than seen and heard.
Hmm.
And typically, if you don't feel that you're part of the in crowd, that can be a little scary and like, oh, well, I'm in a dangerous place here because typically when saber-toothed tigers were around, if you were booted out of the tribe, you were going to be
Yes.
lunch,
Yeah.
right? And we still have that basic instinct to want to be part of the group, but you don't want to fit in. We're not
Mm.
wallpaper, we're not chameleons. Right? You don't want to be like blending in with the walls. You want to belong. And
Hmm.
that's a very different energy. It's a very different approach. This is where you stand in your own power, in your solid foundation of who you are, and you're in there with other people, but you're not trying to be them.
Right. And
And
also, I
we
think,
get very caught up in that.
we do. And it's like, do not be offended if somebody doesn't get you or doesn't like you. It's just you're not a fit for them. And so it's okay. I would say, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm probably somebody's cup of strong black coffee, and it's all right because it's not anything to do with you. It's just you're not on the same energetic wavelength as them. And so they may
It's really
not,
helpful.
yeah.
It's helpful
Mhm.
because you can't be right for everybody and everybody isn't right for you.
Exactly.
So,
Be too much,
if
too
you,
much exhausting if we were.
yeah, yeah. And if you expect that you are liked by everyone, then it's time to think about, well, do I like everyone? No.
Mm,
Well, then why would it be
exactly.
different coming your
Yeah.
way? Now, there's an energy type in human design called manifestors. That's 8% of the world's population, roughly.
Hmm.
And manifestors are very strong individuals. They come across very strong personality. And their magnetic field, which you can also call an aura, this has been scientifically proven, you
Hmm.
can see it on scans and so on. Their aura is bigger than the
Hmm.
rest of us. It's bigger than our auras. And it's the original terminology is that it's repellent, but I don't really like that.
No.
It's selective.
Yes.
And what happens with the manifester is some people will be drawn to that person, and a fair number of people are going to hie it in the other direction
Absolutely.
because they can't handle
Yeah.
what you're bringing. I think this is wonderful, personally. I think this is
Yeah.
such a positive attribute because you have just saved yourself a whole lot of time and trouble sorting out who can work with you, who can be with you, and who can't. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't it great to have something self-selecting? I love that.
Yes, I just draw a comparison to that with all the shows I've done with autistic people. I find them incredibly selective of who is around them because it has to be within harmony of their energy field and the communicative field. And they're very selective. It's not about popularity. It is about those few that they, create their own chorus, so to speak. I think there's a lot to learn from that. It isn't about all the likes and, how many people adore you. It's the few that you have and how harmonious you can be together and, boost each other up and be there for each other. And there's a mountains of energy in that can be very productive when you have that.
Well, the thing is, when people are stuck in people-pleasing mode, what I've found happens is they say yes to everything.
Yeah.
They don't mean it,
Hmm.
really. They may intend it, but they don't mean it. And things don't get done. It
Yeah.
doesn't work well. And that person is building resentment the whole
Yes.
time because they're busy saying yes and they kind of blame you for asking. But that communication falls down, right? And it's like,
Too
well,
scared to say no because you don't want to displease someone. Will they still
right.
like me if I say no? Yeah.
Right. And my question there is, does that matter
You're
really? Do
right.
you care? And
Yes.
if you do, why?
Yeah.
Because you cannot control somebody else's opinion of you. It's the GUP, the good
Hmm.
opinion of other people is not yours to control.
No.
Like you can be the most perfect person on the world and people will
Somebody will
not
find an
like you.
imperfection.
I mean, look at the stars that we have in movies
Mhm.
and on stage and music and so on. Do they not have their haters? Of course they
Of
do.
course they do. Do they not
And
have their own insecurities?
many of those haters are the people who would like to be in
Oh,
that place,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So you can't spend your time getting caught up in who likes me, who doesn't. Did I say the right thing? I don't know.
Mm.
Did it feel right to you?
Hmm.
And, part of
Do
human
you
design,
own it? Can you stand by it, right?
is it yours? Or are
Yes.
you answering from somebody else's perspective?
Yeah.
And a big part of human design actually is looking at how you make your decisions
Hmm.
most effectively.
Mm.
And here's a lovely tip for everybody. If you're using your head and thinking logically, you are making wrong decisions
Exactly.
because the head in human design, we have the crown and the ajna, or the brain, if you will, and the mind. Now, the brain, your crown, is an observatory. You are learning about life, you are learning about all the things on the planet, and this is where it's coming in. It's your source of inspiration. Now, the ajna, which it's either connected to or not, it can't be connected to anything else. The ajna is like a library.
Hmm.
You have all this information stored in tomes, right? And it's open for interpretation.
Yeah.
It's open to your perspective. And it's interesting, it's useful, but you don't make decisions in a library,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
that doesn't work because it's not attached to anything.
Hmm.
So, a belief, for example, is something that you have thought and decided you agree with.
Hmm.
It's no more permanent than that.
Right.
It's no more important than that. And hopefully, if you're an evolved human being, your beliefs can change given new information.
Hmm.
So that would be useful. Now, I hear a lot of people saying science, oh, they lie to us all the time. Oh, that is fundamental misunderstanding of the point of science. Science, which I have science background, so I'm
Hmm.
very attached to it, if you will. But science asks the questions, tries to find the answers, comes up with something, and until new information is available, that is what we have.
Right.
And the point of science is to question everything. So, of
Hmm.
course, the answers are going to change. If they don't, it's not science.
And we're not learning, we're not evolving, we're status
Right.
quoing, right?
We'd
That's
still
the,
have a flat earth
yeah.
and we'd still, I don't know, we'd be moving uh in a different way to the one that we know we are. Like we would learn a whole lot of different things and gravity wouldn't be a thing, right?
We'd
It
still
had
be
to
on
be
a flat
discovered at
world.
some
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
That changed.
Yes. And then David, that's as human nature. That's what we're designed for, is to, for every time we find an answer, there is another question. And it's not about frustration, it's about inquiry, it's about, wondrous, it's about exploration. And I think that if, having another question come out of it is exciting because
It's
it takes
exactly
you,
what you should have.
yeah, exactly, because it takes you, oh, I haven't thought of it that way. Oh, I wonder where that goes. Oh, I've seen this from a totally different point of view. And that's expansion, that's building in the library. And as you know, because I've spoken about this before, the knowingness, that divine wisdom, God, universe, spirit, energy source, whichever you want to call it, that just comes through the soul to the heart in truth, and then given to the spirit in action for the mind to find the clarity it needs in the now when it needs it. And so if I go through my head to make a decision, I guarantee you don't make the wrong one. When I come through my process, soul, heart, spirit, the core, I will understand what knowledge is relevant to the now. And now I have clarity.
Right. So you have found your system. And
Yes.
the book that I've written is a guide for people to find their system
Hmm.
because we all operate differently.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, for example, with my decision-making process, if you wanted me to make a decision about something, your best bet to get a result from me is to give me options.
Yes.
If you just gave me an open-ended question, uh, it's too much. There's too much available information, too many choices, and I can't answer you. But
Hmm.
if you give me three options, I can either choose one or I'll come up with a fourth, but it will be because you gave me the three.
You could
And
focus in
and
more.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it gives me a direction,
Hmm.
right? But if I have an open-ended question, and I'm giving people a lot of information here,
Yeah.
but if I have an open-ended question thrown at me, I'm stuck. I
Yeah.
once had a coach say to me, I've got these three new programs and I need help pricing them. Would you help? And of course I said, sure, yeah, I'll do that. And she said, okay, here they are. What do you think? And I started to laugh and I said, no, 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 you don't get it. This is not how it works. Tell me some options for each one and I'll tell you which one I think. But I'm
Hmm.
not pulling it out of the air. Like, I'm
Right.
not even going to cry
Yeah.
because I know I won't get there. And I
Hmm.
know whatever I do offer you, you're not going to like it. And
Hmm.
she wasn't best pleased with the answer, but I know my decision-making process.
Yes.
And I know that I could struggle with this. And I could spend 10 hours trying to decide, and it would still be the wrong answer.
Hmm.
So, I just give it back to the person and say, okay, I need you to give it me this way. And
Yes.
that's something that when you know your human design, you can do that. You can say, well, this is my process. This is how I make decisions. I need this from you. How much power is that? Like, that's
But
amazing.
also respect, right? Respect. You're asking somebody to give you an opinion or some information, and they're asking you to give whatever content it is in ABC manner. Don't say, but no, no, you've got to do it this way. No, then that person's the wrong fit for you, right? Respect the person's process, respect the way the other person does it. Because this, no, no, but so and so does it this way, then go and take it to so and so,
Mm,
right? It's like respect that this is where we come from. And if you feel that we could be of service from our process, then great. But don't demand that it be done your way and ask an opinion of it.
right. Well, it can't work that way because
No.
you're projecting you onto that person.
Hmm.
But you can also learn so much about the other person if you, first of all,
Yes.
listen to them, and
Hmm.
secondly, work with their process.
It has to be a two-way street.
Another example of processing is if there's a problem, there's a situation that's just, okay, not happy about this. For my husband, he needs quiet time, and he's going to process inwardly. And then once he's come out the other side, we can have a conversation and he's fine. I am not like that.
Mm.
For me, I need to talk it out. And I don't necessarily need a response from anyone. I
Mhm.
just need to verbalize it. It's the action of saying it
Yes.
that helps me process. Now, what we have learned, because we both know this about each other's design, what we've learned is when he's processing something, even though I don't want to, I will give him the space he needs
Yeah.
because I know he needs it. And in
Yes.
this moment, it's about him. Then when I have an issue, he knows he's going to have to stand there, manfully listen to me and just, handle it when I tell him all the things. And he doesn't need to even understand my verbal process. He just needs to be there.
Sounding
And we
board.
do this for each other and we
Hmm.
get through things so much quicker.
Yes.
It
Yes.
speeds
Exactly.
up.
Yeah.
It speeds up and comes up with a much better resolution. So again,
How
knowing your
how
design is
early can
helpful.
how early can someone do an early design? What age can you start
Oh,
from?
you can do it from the moment you're born because
Really?
it's yes, yes. And in fact, I heartily recommend
Yes.
any parents that are listening, please do your children's design. My website, you can do it for free
Hmm.
and download your chart. You can't change your design. It is what it
Hmm.
is, and there are no bad designs. You are designed perfectly. The question is, will you work with it or will you
Right.
try and squash it?
Yeah.
And the thing for parents, it's so important. Again, let's go with the manifester for a moment. A manifester child is a lot to handle.
Hmm.
This kid is pinging off the walls. They are changing their mind a lot. They dive into this project, then halfway through, they're over there and they're doing that thing. Is it ADHD? It might be, but it probably isn't. Like, look at their design. If that's a manifester, it's probably not ADHD. The manifestor's working on a different time scale to the rest of us.
Right.
They don't need to go from A to Z and do all the things that have been laid out. They might get a third of the way through and it's enough. They know everything they need to know and now they're going to move on to the next thing. This is correct for them. But what happens with parents of a
Mm.
manifestor is they'll try and squash the child into a safe shape. Don't keep running off. Don't keep doing these different things because I, as the parent, I have no idea what you're doing. So stop it, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
our default setting because we want the child to be safe. Now, what happens is the child is hemmed in and their anger, which is a natural response for a
Mm.
manifester to being out of alignment, their anger is turned inward and they become self-limiting. So that person who sort of shoots himself in the foot every time they start to be successful, they blow it up somehow.
Mhm.
That person has that inward anger. And what they're doing is self-sabotaging before somebody else gets to do it for
Right.
them,
That makes
right?
sense.
And this whole process, I can take you through it in human design and show you where it's coming up.
Mhm.
For an adult with manifesting, I can show them this is how you got to where you are. This is how we can unravel it. For a child, if you know that about them, you don't have to squash them in the first place. It's
So
a
is it
different
done
thing.
through the birth date?
Yes, you need your birth date. You need your birth time, and time is important. I could
Hmm.
tell you a story about that in a moment. And also the location. And
Hmm.
then there's a whole lot of systems involved. So we use Western astrology, yes. It's also Hindu Brahmin chakras,
Hmm.
and it's the I Ching from China,
Hmm.
right? The Book of Wisdom. Um, and it's the Jewish Kabbalah, the mysticism of Kabbalah. All of that is wrapped up in quantum mechanics, believe
Hmm.
it or not. And so it's a very complex system. But the root of it is your birth details. And
Mm.
the time matters because it does actually shift how you show up in certain nuanced ways over time. An example being, only once have I had a client say to me, that doesn't sound right when I'm talking to her about something. And I said, well, it doesn't. Let's have a look at your chart because I haven't had this experience before. And what had happened was she'd gotten the time clock mixed up from a 12 to a 24 hour or rather from a 24-hour to a 12. And so she was 12 hours out on her
All
time.
right. Yes, that's quite
So we
significant.
changed it.
Hmm.
We changed it, ran the chart again, and then I went through it. Ah, okay. Now
Yeah,
we're in the right place.
right.
It almost fit, but
Uh,
not quite.
right.
We got the time shifted. Now we were in a good space. And the thing with human design is you'll know. You don't have to believe one word I
Right.
say. In fact, I ask people, please don't take it on trust. Don't take it
Hmm.
on faith. Go test it.
Yes.
You become the scientist. This is your life. I can't tell you this is absolutely you. I can tell you this is what I understand about you. Now, please go test it.
I know I had it done years ago, and I can't quite remember what I was. As you talk about manifester, because recently somebody says I had ADD, but I do have partial dyslexia, and it kind of made sense for the way I think. But the way you're talking about manifesting too kind of also makes sense. And I can't remember if I was generator or manifester, you know.
Well, there is a hybrid type which is manifesting generator.
Ah.
So you could be there. I'm happy to look at that for you if you would like. But you'll also know when if you generate your chart, it will tell you what your type is.
Right, yes.
It's when you get into the detail,
Mm,
that's the interesting part. And the thing is, the type, it's an umbrella, right? It's a
yeah,
big umbrella. There's 5 types.
yes,
So that's the whole planet fits into those five
yes.
types, right? So that does start you off. And then you've got the centers. There are
Hmm.
9 centers, and they're either defined or connected, if you will,
Yeah.
or they're undefined or open, which means if it's defined, the energy that belongs to that center is constant, it's fixed, it's available to you, it's
Hmm.
yours. When you have an open center, now you're a magnifying mirror. You absorb energy from other people of that center and amplify it.
Hmm.
So, for example, if your emotional center, your solar plexus, if that is undefined or open, then you're actually going to absorb other people's emotions
God, yes.
and it feels like it's yours. So you can be sitting in a room and you're fine and you're doing your
Hmm.
thing, typing at work or whatever. And then someone comes into the room and they're having a bad day. Meow, meow,
Hmm.
meow, meow. Within a few minutes, chances are you don't feel as good as you did.
Hmm.
You're kind of grumpy for no reason or just feeling a little off. And when that happens, it feels like it's you, but
Yeah,
it's not. It's that person. You're absorbing their energy,
yeah.
feeling it, and you can offload it by going for a walk somewhere, or
Hmm.
you can say, hey, is this something I can help you with? Do you have a problem that you'd like some assistance with? If that suits you to ask. Don't feel that you have to, but you have options. Just know it's not yours. So there's 9 centers like that. And
Yes.
then you get to the 32 channels, and those all make a difference. They're like rivers of energy
Hmm.
flowing. And then 64 gates, whether they are defined or undefined, activated or not, makes a difference. And
Hmm.
when you combine all of those, it makes a difference again. So think of a cake. You've got different recipes, you've got different ingredients.
Yeah.
That's all one thing, and they all matter on their own. But if you put them together and bake them as a cake, now you've got another thing.
Hmm.
And that's a sort of simplified, very simplified version of your human design in action. You also have profiles. There are 12 profiles that come from the I Ching hexagrams.
Yes.
And those are fun to play with, giving people more information. I'm a 2-4, and what that means is the 2 line is my conscious personality. I know this about me. And the 4 is an unconscious, other people will know it before I do.
Mm.
And so the 2, I'm a bit of a hermit, and that's a fact. I like to have my cave.
Hmm.
I am a bit of a hermit. And I know things that I can't tell people how I know them. I just do.
Yeah, that's what I call the knowingness. Yes, yes.
And as a 2 line,
Hmm.
that is correct for me. So I no longer feel like I have to figure out why I know it. I
Right,
can
just
just accept
accept.
that I do.
Yes,
Then the 4 is networking. I have to take the knowledge I have
yes.
and share it with people through a network.
Yeah.
And it's a very push-pull design.
Yes,
So I
because
have
one
that all the
wants
time.
you to be on your own, the other one expansion out. Yes, I completely relate to that. Um, when I'm in a crowd, people think I'm this gregarious person, but I really love my alone time, just doing what I do.
Mhm.
And nothing else around me. It's kind of the recharging and the gathering of energy, so you can go and spend it in those
Right.
moments, right? So I couldn't
And
go and do
sometimes,
that all the time.
right. And with the 2-4, people kind of need to pull you out of your cave sometimes.
Yes,
And that's correct for that design.
yes.
So I would love to have a look at yours sometime and
Yeah, I know.
see
I
if
might
you're a
be.
2-4.
I'm very because I'm a true colors coach, right? And I have a little program where I take numerology, Chineseology, and astrology, and I look at all the common denominators with your true colors. But I also take you on a metaphorical journey as to how you're paying attention to life, and it's always fascinating to watch people go,
Oh, I love that
oh,
bit.
ah, kind
Mhm.
of that discovery, because everything I'm doing is self-discovery, right? The whole of these shows are all about self-discovery. And I think the more we discover about who we are, how beautifully awesome we are, even in our flawsomeness, and that we're all particularly designed for a reason. And when we understand that, the empowerment of ourselves and what we're here to do, we can get on and do it because we're not trying to deny who we are or try and fit into a mold. We are this mold. This is how we were made. Stop apologizing and just be.
Right. And the unapologetic part of the aligned and unapologetic is that you have confidence in who you
Yes,
are, and other people's judgments, you don't have to worry about them because they don't touch you anymore.
right.
It doesn't matter when you realize that they're coming from their lens, which is very
Yes,
cloudy with all kinds of dirt and stuff from their own lives, and it means nothing about you.
right.
And it's so, you mentioned the moments that people have.
Yes,
And
yes.
I was working with a mature woman. She was in her 70s, and we did her human design. And she kind of stared at me at one point. I wondered what was coming. And she said, "Do you mean that that is a gift?" And I said, "Yes, that aspect of you is a gift. It's something that you bring to the world that you can share." And she said, "I have spent my entire life being told I was wrong for that." And she started to cry.
Yes.
And it was a very powerful moment. So
Mm,
I let her have her moment. And then I said, "Well, now you get to go use it.
yeah, yeah.
There's
And it's
no
never too
lost
late. Never too
there's no
late.
lost time here.
No.
You just get to start right now, which is
Yeah,
what you have now.
yeah,
So go use it."
yeah.
And I believe she's written a book since then, and she's done,
Yay.
a bunch of things since then that she was holding herself back from. Well, we do that because we think we have to.
Yeah,
And when you find out that you don't have to, how powerful is that? And
exactly.
and I think the world is such a hot mess at the
Oh.
moment because people, well, I have a couple of theories on this, but the first surface one is that so many people are out of alignment with what they need to do,
Yeah.
that they're unhappy, and
Hmm.
unhappy people make
Bad
unfortunate
choices.
decisions. They make unfortunate decisions because where you're coming from
Mm,
can't produce something positive.
no.
If you're scooping out of a cesspool, you are not
Yeah.
going to make a chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Work with that as you
Nothing
will.
edible
But
there.
there's nothing good coming out of that,
Right.
right? So you need to change what you're using as your source, and being authentically you, knowing what that is, that's the key. That is an amazing gift. And what I often find is when we come across something that a person says, "Well, no, I don't do that. Would you like to? How does that feel?" And we
Uh,
start investigating, and that they're talking about is typically something like this woman mentioned that she's always been told was wrong.
right.
You daydream, you stare out the window, you talk too much,
Uh-huh.
whatever. That's probably a creative person who's
Mhm.
trying to process something, and you're stopping them.
Yes.
Just because you don't do it that way
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they don't, right? But we don't allow each other the space to be who we are. And that's really problematic. Then, on a very, very human design level, 70% of the world's population is either a pure generator or a manifesting generator. The generator part is key. The sacral center is literally the thing that lifts you up.
Yeah.
It's a motor center. It's the biggest center you have, if you will. And when it's defined, you're in alignment, you produce all this energy that people around you are lifted up by. It costs you nothing, you don't
Hmm.
lose anything. It's like love, you give it, you get
Yeah.
more. It's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you
The
put
love
that energy
generator.
out,
Hmm.
you lift people up. But if you're out of alignment, what you're putting out there is kind of sludgy and not great. So you're not really lifting people up. Now, the more people in that 70% of the population that are being pushed out of alignment,
Hmm.
the more sludgy that energy is. And now we have, look at the planet
Yes. Yes.
and you see a thing, right?
Uh-huh. Well, this is what I was saying, a little while ago that, when we deny our children our essence, and I'm going to talk about the book that you contributed in,
Oh,
Our
yeah.
Forgotten Children. And the reason for putting this around the book is that I feel we throw our children away in so many levels. One, the obvious reasons. I mean, so many children are going through so much turmoil at home with either broken families or poverty or sickness or whatever, but also we throw our children away where we do not take that beautiful divine essence of what they are, that wonderment, that inquisitivity, that exploration, and nurture it into something that could be absolutely magnificent. Instead, it's conform, conform, conform. You must do it
Right.
my way. It's the only way. I'm going to grade you on it. And if you don't do it my way exactly, then you're going to get an F. So now you feel you've failed. And I feel the entire system is setting us up as adults to be less than what we are meant to be lost and disconnected. And then we have a dysfunctional society. And I think that let's go back to the core, to that child at birth. Let's know what the human design is. Let's nurture all their wonderment. Let them go on this
Mhm.
exploration and go with them. It's fascinating to watch it. I've got two
And let
grandchildren.
them lead.
Yes. Oh,
Let
yes.
them lead.
Yes.
I used to be a Montessori teacher. And when my kids were little, they were in Montessori and I wanted to know what they were doing. So I became a teacher. And Maria Montessori said, follow the child.
Yes.
They'll show you what they need to learn. That was the smartest thing I think any kind of teacher has ever said.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do as a parent is, and I don't mean this in an uninvolved way, but get out of your child's way.
Yes.
Let them try the things. And an example I want to give any parent listening right now, so important in my life, is my eldest son was at school in Canada, funnily enough, and his teacher came to me and said, he's really not very good at French. Don't put him in for languages. He's not very good at them. And I thought the way she worded it was a bit
Mm.
stronger, and I thought, wow, that's harsh. As good fortune would have it, we were literally moving that weekend to Singapore. And so when we got to the school there, they said, he's going to have to learn Mandarin. And I
Hmm.
thought, this is going to be interesting. But I hadn't said anything. I hadn't
Right.
repeated what the teacher said.
Yeah.
I was holding it.
Yeah.
It turned out that he learned Mandarin so easily, it astonished people. He loved it.
Hmm.
Reading, writing, even telling jokes on quiz teams. Like he loves Mandarin. Fast forward to now, and he speaks 7 languages. He
Wow.
has a PhD in linguistics.
Hmm.
He is excellent at languages. So if you go back to where that teacher was coming
Hmm.
from, she did not know how to teach language in a way that he could receive. And he
Exactly.
wasn't the only one.
Right.
So she took her lack of ability to teach as his problem. Now, as a
Yes.
parent, if I'd listened to the teacher, because teachers know,
Uh-huh.
I would have ruined his direction in life
Yeah.
and had him be less than he could be.
Yeah.
And that's something, how often do we do that? We listen to other people
Yes.
instead of, hey kid, what can you do? What do you want to do? And let them get out of their way and let them show you. You follow
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah. I was a child because I was very, very sickly, missed a great deal of school. And so it was always like, well, she's never going to be academic. She's never going to amount to anything. Let's just hope she has a marriage, that works, all of that. So, but I was a person that most certainly my wings kept flapping. And I would go into many jobs. And actually have had two bosses that have been fired because I gave them an idea and they didn't go with it and they offered me their jobs. And I said, no, I'm not after their jobs. I'm just after sharing what I see, which they denied because it didn't come from them. Right. So,
Right.
and I can't help but do that because when I see something, I have to share it. That's just who I am. And I don't think I was ever meant to be anywhere permanent. I think I was meant to be there just to shake things up a little bit and then off I go. But that was deemed failure because I didn't stay at anything. And when I did my true colors, we found out my family was predominantly this one color or that color, and I was the opposite color of the fence. And
Right.
that's the reason why I couldn't be that steady, rooted, linear person because I'm air and I constantly got to be in flow. But once I knew that, it became such freedom for me. Right?
Exactly.
It
Isn't it
became such
wonderful?
liberation that it's
Mm.
okay to be this because I cannot stop what I see. I'm
And
a visioner.
you can't not be who you are.
No,
That's the thing.
exactly.
You can squash it and it's
Yep.
miserable, but you
Yes,
can't not be who you are. It's always there.
exactly.
And how many of us spend lifetimes
Yes.
trying to not be who we are? You know, again, going to human design, because funnily enough, as I've said before, I've been moving since I was 6 months old. I've lived in 8 countries so
Right.
far, some of them on numerous occasions. So 13 international moves, I would say. And every time I move country, who I am, how I show up
Mm.
changes.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
it's not because I'm trying to be wallpaper,
No.
but it's because the country, the environment, the stage my kids are at, or the stage I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
requires something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you spoke to somebody from each of those places
Yeah.
and said, what do you know about Michaela? Who is she? They would give you 8 different people,
Yeah.
at least,
Yes.
at least.
Yes.
And they're all accurate
Right.
because in my human design, my G center, which is the center of identity, purpose, there's a few things in there, but identity is a big piece. Mine is undefined.
Mm.
So who I am is defined by me as and when, right?
And
Like
and
it
your environment
changes.
and
It's
the
not
energy that
fixed.
you're around.
It's not fixed. So I will change with the environment.
Yes.
And so being in Singapore, I show up very differently to
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in Belgium, for
Yeah.
example. I've lived in both places for 4 years each. And I was very different in each. And then in
Mm-hmm.
Bangladesh, different again, because it didn't seem correct for me to be the same. Like I couldn't
Yes.
be the same. I needed to be a different person there. This is, I spent
But is that
years.
but that's without losing your core of you. That is just
Oh, I'm still
adaptation.
me.
Yes.
I'm still
It's
me,
this how
but
you
I'm
represent
using a
yourself.
different
Yeah.
I'm
Mm.
using a different part of me
Right.
predominantly for this situation.
Yeah.
And then, another part over here. We're all like diamonds, we're
Mm.
multifaceted. We don't have one thing that we do. We're not one trick ponies,
No.
even if you have a defined center. But for me, it was just, okay, this is what I need here. So this is what I'll bring here. But it's always me bringing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's
And
the
and
thing is
that's
is that we're not, yeah, it's just we're not just like one brushstroke. We are. And the beauty of that multifaceted is that you kind of become your own orchestra in many ways. In here, I'm going to be this instrument. There, I'm going to be that instrument. But you're building up on your own orchestra, and it's all coming from that space of I hear the music, and this is how I will represent the music here, there, and everywhere.
so for a little clarity for anybody listening that doesn't particularly know me well, like when I went to Bangladesh, I was a tropical diseases nurse and I was working in an orphanage. And that was what was needed in Bangladesh. Now, if I went there bringing human design, I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be very helpful to a lot of people
Right.
because that's
Exactly.
not uppermost. They
That
needed
wasn't the
help with
hat you were
medical
wearing.
stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't the hat I was wearing, it wasn't the one they needed me to
Hmm.
wear. In Belgium, my kids were little and they were going to Montessori school, and that seemed like an
Hmm.
interesting thing to me to learn to do that and be that. So I did that there. And each
Yeah.
place I'm at, something is suitable. for that environment, and so I do that thing. But it's always me, right? However, I spent years thinking, what's wrong with me? Why don't I
Yes.
just have, why don't I just have a 40-year career in one thing? But I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
hear you.
actually in my design, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep morphing because that's what I do. It's
But
always
that's,
me,
but
though.
that's also, I mean, that inquisitiveness of
Mm,
what's behind this door, what's around this corner. For me, I made a move where I am now, 1st of May last year. And I've said, this is my forever home. You're taking me out in a body bag straight to the crematorium. I do not want to move again. I've moved 35 houses before, never mind all the other little moves along with it. And I just want that stability. But that means that I want the physical stability. That doesn't mean it means that I'm rooted enough to actually spread my wings elsewhere, right? And I think if I have had a friend here this weekend. She was a teacher. She was a librarian teacher. One of her friends this weekend died that she had from the first day of teaching school. And she has friends going back to elementary school. And she's 78 now. So she
wow.
has lifetime friends. And I look at that and part of me is envious, but the other part of me knows, but I'm part butterfly. So I can't be netted. And I'm not meant to be. She's the longest
Mhm.
friend I've had and the dearest friend I have. And I don't have many bosom buddies, like, but I
Same.
have numerous kind of friends. It's weird. Um,
Mhm.
and it would be lovely to have that, but it's not me. I could never be that. And it's why do we
Mm.
care that we think that we should be? My spirit is meant to fly, and I have to give it wings.
But that's the thing is we often think, well, other people aren't doing that, therefore I shouldn't.
Right.
But you can't not,
Yes.
right? Like you have to do that. And I'm the same when people talk about things from their childhood or, even when I get asked the question, where are you from?
Yeah.
I don't have a pat answer for you that I can say I'm from this town or that town because it doesn't matter. I've
Hmm.
been moving since I was 6 months old. So where I'm from is a story, it's not a place.
Exactly.
And that is literally how it has to be. So, do I have childhood friends? No. I have
Right.
no idea where they are.
Yeah.
No. Um, I'd be hard put to recall names, honestly, because I
Yes.
moved so often.
Yeah.
And so, is that sad? Well, it depends. I don't know what I'm missing because I didn't have it to lose it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I have other strengths, and when I form friendships, I can form them quickly and they're meaningful and they can be deep. And I can also let that person have their time. If they need to move on, then they move on because that's
Exactly.
what I understand about relationships.
Yeah.
They're here and then they aren't. And, I studied Buddhism for quite some time when I lived in Asia. And there are many, many fine lessons in Buddhism.
Hmm.
And one of them is non-attachment, which doesn't
Yeah.
mean disinterest or
Yes.
disattachment. It means you have it, you enjoy it, you let it go. When it's time, it's time.
Yes.
And rather than chasing and mourning and complaining,
Hmm.
it's like, no, this is great now, and then you let it go.
Hmm.
And this is something, again, that we tend to squash. Knowing how your human design works can even help you with that because
Yeah.
you understand how things flow.
Yes.
Nothing is static.
No.
Relationships aren't static. They're either building or disintegrating,
Right.
and they're here for however long they're here, and then something changes and it needs to be different now. And some people in their design, they are designed to create and break bonds and to
Mm.
do it repeatedly. And what that means is you might start a relationship, maybe you're just friends, and then that changes, and now you become intimate partners, and maybe that changes, and now you
Hmm.
become colleagues and friends, and it can shift. That is correct for that
You just
person.
described my last relationship.
Right.
And
But
then it
but that works.
disintegrated. Yeah.
But it's
It served
okay.
its time. It served its purpose, right?
Precisely. It served its time. And
Yes.
so a group of people that I find human design is wonderful for are people, male or female, who are going through a divorce
Hmm.
because divorce is so weird.
Yeah.
Like it blows my mind how you're getting divorced and suddenly the wilderness dog has an opinion on it, which is fascinating to me
Yes.
because I don't know, were you in the marriage?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
And people
Were you
take
that third wheel?
sides, right? And people take sides. Now,
Yes.
here's the thing, there doesn't need to be a side.
No.
It's the one contract in life that people don't think could or should be broken, and
Mm,
yet everything else can.
mm,
So I would say, how about the perspective of that was then, I'm now in a different space and it looks different. Same for your partner, right?
yeah.
And they get to do it their way. The thing is, can you do this in a civil, authentic way that
Yes.
flows for you, especially if children are involved?
No
They do
ego.
not need to be pawns.
No.
They do not need
No.
to hear your stuff, and they certainly don't need to feel it. But
And also
if
their
you
relationship with mother and father is their relationship. It's
Mhm.
not yours, right? And
Right,
so
and
once it's
you
separated,
don't
it's their
diss.
choice.
And you don't diss the other side because that's
Right.
50% of their genetics. Let's not do
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
But the understanding of human design can help you put yourself back together, if you will,
Yes.
in a way that what happened, what do I want to do next, where am I now? All of those questions can be answered by knowing your human design. You can work through them and you can figure out where were you trying not to be you? Because
Wouldn't
quite
it be
often
great if you actually
relationships,
did it together before you got to the divorce side of it? Like
I've
if
done
we
that.
both did our human design and find
Mhm.
out what we're missing in each other, now we probably have a better communication of understanding. Oh, that's why. It's like you with your husband. If you went over there and started chatting when he's in his silent process, right?
Bothers
It
him.
wouldn't work. So it's respecting
Right.
what each other needs and knowing when is the green light, right?
You know, funnily enough, I worked with, there's two couples that leap to mind. One couple, they'd been married, I think, 4 years, and they were talking divorce. They got a 3-year-old, they're talking
Mm,
divorce. They were mad at each other. But luckily, they came to me to do human design and to work on it. We only needed to work together for about 3 months, which is a really short space of time when you think about it. And we sorted out he's a manifester, she's a projector. They
mm.
have very different approaches to things, and the daughter's a projector as well. And so I gave them their perspectives from a human design point of view, like go and
Uh,
test this, see how this lands for you. When each of them understood where the other one was coming
yes.
from, they started to resolve some of those long-standing
Mm,
issues. 2 years later, they are still married, they have a company together, and their child's happy.
yes.
The other couple that leap to mind have been married 50 years,
Mm,
and they came with like, okay, this is getting sticky,
uh,
it's been 50 years. And so we worked through where some things have become stale, other
mhm.
things were assumptions had been sitting too long, that kind of thing. And again, knowing their human design for each of them was an eye opener
Yeah.
for themselves and then with each other. And
Because you don't
so,
take things personally anymore. Well, she's
right,
ignoring me, so I'm taking it personally. No, she's just in her silent mode, and that's the thing. When
right.
you actually understand, you realize it's got really nothing to do with you per se. It's just this
Right.
is just each other's process. And if we can respect that, we can also find a way to communicate without, our egos or, our sensitivity getting in the way, because we've taken it personally and it's really
Mhm.
got nothing to do with you.
Right. And the thing is, communication is a massive part of what makes us human. And I think it's our biggest failing, generally speaking.
Yeah.
We don't communicate well at all. And when there's a gap in communication, the human brain will fill in that gap with what it knows, and it will come from a negative bias
Hmm.
because that's our lizard brain. That's the longest part of us that's been in existence. And for a safety thing, it's always going to look at the negative. And so you'll fill in that gap with some very negative assumptions that are totally unfair to the other person, but you're
Yes.
running with it because it makes sense. And then you act from that place. Remember what we said before
Mm,
about the cesspool, right? So you act from that place. Now that person's receiving something that's really not great.
right.
What are they to make of it?
Yes.
And you end up just you build your
Total
tower of
volcano
problems.
eruption. Exactly.
You build your tower of problems
Yeah.
in the most natural way,
Yes.
right?
Without
And it
realizing you're doing it because you're
right,
communicating at each other, not with each other, on
right.
with an understanding.
And if you're working against that other person's design or even against your own, you can have problems. So, for
Yeah.
example, manifester again, just seems to be coming up today. Manifestors, their strategy for moving through life in a smoother way is it's called to inform.
Mm.
And I haven't met a manifestor that likes that because they always think I'm saying ask permission, but I'm not. Very specifically not. Generators hate asking permission. It's a very strong thing in their design. But to inform means as a manifestor, you're about to go do something new. You're starting something. That's what
Mm.
they do. And a manifest is very quick. So they will typically forget the people who are with them. They forget to
Aha. Yeah.
tell them, right? They don't inform them about what's happening. They just take off and go do something new. And the people left there are thinking, well,
Scratching our
I'm
heads.
abandoned.
Yeah.
I'm abandoned. Like
Yeah.
what just happened? Why have I been left sitting here? And those stories fill in.
Yes.
Um, Meanwhile, the manifestor's off doing their thing. And when they come back, they're in a world of trouble because all this stuff builds
Yes.
up. They don't know why. So then they get angry. And you can see all this thing
Yeah.
building. All that needs to change is the manifestor says, I am going to go and do X. If you want to join me, come. If you don't, I'll be back later. And they go.
Exactly.
That's it. It's not hard, but you got to know it to be able to do it.
Right. Right. I mean, bottom line, doing your human design not only helps you understand who you are, why you are, helps you, center your core and come from that place, but how others are going to perceive you. So therefore, fill in the details. you know um
Absolutely.
explain why you think this way, and that this isn't anything against them, this is just your process, and it's okay to do that. It's also okay whether the other people accept it or not, because then you'll know whether you're going to be entwined or not, right? But we're so
Right.
scared to communicate who we are. I think fear of judgment, fear,
Mhm.
fear of rejection, a big one, right?
Huge,
and
huge.
uh, fear of the non-acceptance, and I think if we're just willing to say, look, this is me, that doesn't mean I'm not flexible, but this is the core of me and this is how I see things, right?
Mhm.
And if you feel we can have a communication, then let's look to actually understanding each other. But how many people do that? How many people say, I want to know, well, I want to know you. Well, where do you work? Where were you born? What do you like? This or that? No, that's not getting to know you,
Mhm.
right?
That's your societal roles.
Yeah.
Are you a mother, a sister, a
Yes.
daughter, a da 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 da
Label. Are
da?
you a label? Yeah.
Sure.
Hmm.
So are millions of other people. What does that mean?
Right.
It tells you
Yes.
nothing. So to leap to a different design type, because it fits here, projectors are people who they get like a bird's eye view of systems. Projectors are amazing at looking at all the details and seeing how if you change this over here and just
Hmm.
tweak that, everything will work better. But here's the key for projectors. They need to be recognized for
Yes.
their abilities and invited to share. And
Mm.
if they're not, if they jump in and volunteer, then they are going to be pushed back,
Mm.
perceived as being bossy, and they'll be very bitter about it. All of these are very key to projectors.
Mm.
They get very bitter about it because they don't understand. I have an answer for you. Why don't you want it?
Right.
Well, it was the way it was offered.
Aha.
That person needs to look at you and say, along the lines of, wow, I see that you're great at podcasting. You know what? I would love for you to host me or come on
Uh-huh.
mine or whatever it is, right? But they recognize what you have and they invite you. And then it's
Right.
up to you to decide yes or no, right? The
Yeah.
projector doesn't have to say yes, but it pretty much always falls flat if
Mm.
you volunteer
Mm.
or if you push it forward
Mm.
because they're not ready to receive it. So for a
Right.
projector, it's really important to know that. And the other thing is the projector doesn't have that sacral center defined. So
Mm.
their energy comes and goes. And a
Ah.
projector can't work all day. They need to
Uh-huh.
do brilliant things in the morning, perhaps. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably their time. Take a few hours to nap, go for a walk, chill out because they're getting lots of insight. Then maybe they can work again in the evening or not. But the point is, the short bursts that you get are epic. The value is way better than if you made them work all day. And if you make
Mm.
that person work all day, they're going to be exhausted and unhappy, and you're
Burnout.
not going to like the results. So, again, knowing the difference, you know, we tend to think everybody's a generator and can
Mm.
work all day. But if you're not a generator, you can't work all day.
Right. And can you have a manifestor projector?
No. You
Right.
have a manifesting generator. So
Mm-hmm.
the types are manifester, which is 8% of the population, and they are here to make new things, to forge paths,
Mm-hmm.
to change things. And they're fast. They learn quickly. They move from project to project. They don't sustain the projects. They start them, somebody else takes over.
Yes.
Typically, a generator
Uh-huh.
will take over. Now, manifesting generators have hybrid energy. So they have some of that urge to move quickly, but
Mm-hmm.
they also have the need to respond to opportunities from the generator center, and they have the ability to keep going where a manifester doesn't. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some shifts there. Then you have the pure generator, and that person is here like a worker bee. You
Right.
see the opportunities and you say, I like that one. I'm going to go do that. And if it is in alignment with you, you can do it all day and you won't even notice you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I can do human design all day long and I am bouncing full of energy by the end of the day. I love it. It lights me up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is my happy space. And your happy space is you in alignment, like
Mm-hmm.
literally. So that's generators. Then you have projectors who oversee systems and they are just incredible at fixing
Detail.
details and they'll see the details.
Yes.
Then you have, so I've gone manifester, manifesting generator, generator, projector, and then the fifth one, the fifth one is the reflector, and that is 1% of the world's population.
Mm.
And the reflector, bless the hearts, have no centers defined, none, which means
Mm.
every center is open, absorbing, and amplifying what's around them.
Ah,
So
chameleon.
reflectors are like they're like canaries in the coal mine.
Oh,
You will
right.
see you'll see what the health of your environment is like by looking at how the reflector's doing. It's a
That's very
tough
interesting.
design to have. So
Yeah.
none of them are bad, but that is
Yeah.
one that you have to have strategies for. I've actually had the fortune to work with 5 different reflectors so far, and that's quite rare because 1% of the world's population. But they have to have a lot of strategies in place to keep their sanity. And a sort of famous example of a reflector is Sandra Bullock, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, her personal life is utter chaos, right?
Uh-huh.
She does not do well in her personal life. And I can understand that because, you know, things are shifting and changing all the time, and so is she, depending on who's around her. But when you look at her professional life,
Mm-hmm.
that also shows the reflector. She can be anybody.
You're
Her
right.
character acting is on
Mm-hmm.
point
Yeah.
because she literally does become that person.
Yes.
She can morph in that way. She can't not, right? If that's her environment. So reflectors are just 1%, and they have a whole different thing that we need to work on. They still have gates, they don't have channels.
Mm.
So there's still things to work on there, a lot, and strategies to develop. But if you know you're working with a reflector, for example, you're going to have a very different approach to them than if you know they're a manifester.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, opposite ends of the spectrum. Like
Yeah,
you want to deal
exactly.
with them differently.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just kind of, going through the people I know as you're saying that and try to identify. I can't remember if I was a generator or not, but I don't feel a generator because I do spend my energy and I'm one of these people that need,
Well,
the
see,
calm time with that.
that's okay because your profile would. have some influence over that. And the other
Right.
thing is, this is the big design. When you
Hmm.
get into the channels and the gates, that gives you the nuances. So, for example, some people have the gate of new beginnings, which means that even if they're a generator, they can start a new project, but they're not really very good at keeping going with it, even though they're a generator. But what they can do brilliantly with that talent is help other people kickstart their projects. Hey, you want
Yes.
to launch a new business? I can help you. You want to launch a new project? I can help you. Because you take that thing that people first perceive as a limitation.
Hmm.
Oh, no, I'm never going to complete anything. Okay, do you have to? No, you could help other people start, couldn't you?
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
have to. So
So
even if
would
you're a
that align with
generator,
somebody that is kind of the seer? You see the possibilities. You don't do the possibilities, you see them for others.
yes, absolutely. Like you could have somebody who's a brilliant business coach.
Yes.
But they coach, and maybe their coaching business isn't that great
Hmm.
because they can give you a business plan in an hour, but they're
Not
not
themselves.
necessarily able to do it for
Yeah.
themselves. And
Hmm.
that's often the way, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't mean their plan is less valuable. It means you're
Right.
benefiting from their design. They have this ability to offer this to you. So whatever it is you're looking at in your human design that you think, oh, that's not very good, it's always good. You have both sides to the thing. So, for example, if you have a save the day kind of energy, then you have the ability to jump in and problem solve and save people from themselves.
Yes.
The flip side of that is you might be a little too quick to do that, and they might
Hmm.
not want your help, or
Right.
maybe you perceive a problem where other people don't, and you're
Yes.
trying to fix something that's not broken.
Mm.
So there's two sides, right?
Mm.
Which one do you want to look at? Be aware of the one so that you
Hmm.
don't do it, and then enjoy the other.
Yeah. So, once you know what these things are, it isn't just a label, it's then understanding all the different threads along with it. And
Absolutely.
I always say that when you're aware, you care, and when you care, you can do something about it. And I think when you're
Mm,
aware of what kind of
I love that.
personality trait you are, you can care. You can care about how you come across because you're caring about who you are as a person. How many people will care for everyone else and not themselves? And the doing
Uh-huh.
something about it is that knowledge. Well, now I know better, or now I understand why. I can be more cognitive on A, B, and C in my approach to people.
Right. And if you know that you're jumping in because you have this natural urge to do so, but it's not always well received,
Hmm.
then you can start to look at, well, okay, when am I jumping in too soon? Or am I a projector and I need to wait to be invited? Not everybody should be a volunteer, for example. Much
Yes.
will depend on your design. And some people are very community
Yeah.
oriented,
Yeah.
others less so. Nothing wrong with either of them.
Yeah.
We need everybody. That's the thing. All those five designs, we need all of them, and we
Exactly.
need people to show up as they are.
Yeah.
And there's none that are bad. There's
Right.
none, even the reflector. Reflector is probably the most prized diamond of them all because there's so few and because their role is so key. If a reflector is doing badly, the environment has a
Right.
problem
Exactly.
and you need to fix that. You got some
Yeah.
stuff to work on. And we all bring our unique talents to that. When you know what they are, you have options as to how you're going to use them. Because if you don't know, it's still happening, but
Yes.
maybe you go on the darker side of what you can do.
Mm.
Maybe you get stuck in that bossy energy. Maybe you're forcing your opinions on other people. You don't have to do it that way. You could
Right.
choose differently if you know that. So there's so much there. I mean, this is over 400 pages of just a guide, right?
Right.
There's over 400 pages in there, and there's no fluff, there's no extra
Right.
wording. This is just boom, 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 boom. That's how much work there is. So it's I feel
But
it's a
that, to some people goes, oh, too much, too much. But you don't have to jump into the deep end. Just put your feet in the water, find
oh
out what your
yeah,
design is. And then from there, savor. Well, I'm this, and this is what this means on this level. Savor it, practice it, integrate it. Okay, now what's the next level? It doesn't mean you have to go in and do a thesis on it,
Oh
before you
no.
actually understand each level.
And each part, there are bits that will apply to you, and there's plenty that doesn't.
Right,
Maybe it'll apply to your partner or your child or
right.
something. But no, you don't need the entire book. You just need to find you in there.
Yeah.
So you might have, what's this one? The 63 to 4 channel. And I've got how that person thrives, how to balance doubt with acceptance, collaboration with others, focusing on systems and patterns, practical mental rest,
Mm,
how to work with this channel. And all that's just one channel. And then we get into relationships. There's strengths, challenges, ideal partners, work and career, ideal roles, strengths at work, challenges at work. Circuit influence, which is where it belongs. This
mm,
particular one is the channel of logic. There's a mantra in there. There's key takeaway.
mhm.
The too long did not read. There's the key takeaway at the end. All that's just one channel. There are 32 of those in here. You might need 4 or 5,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So it's a big book, yes, but you don't have to read it from cover to cover. You
It's a
use your
reference
chart and you
book.
find you in there. It's a
Right,
reference
exactly.
book.
Yeah.
Hence the sticky notes to sort of say,
Yes.
okay, that's me. And you can put a little note on your sticky note, but really use one color so that you can bring
Yeah.
other people in.
I think, what we're looking at in the world is miscommunication. Uh, Not just that we don't know how to speak with each other, but we don't know from whom we are speaking.
Yes.
And then the more we know about ourselves, the better we understand our interaction, our language, and perceive others' languages. We may not know they're a generator of this or that, but from you get to identify, I wonder if that person's this or that, just from the way they're interacting. So you may not be, but how do we adjust our language so we can speak to them in their language and form a communication? And it's just being flexible. And this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show. We need wonderment, we need exploration, we need inquiry. For every answer, there is a lovely question. What else is there to know? And if we lose that in that complacency, we become this murky, dirty pond that's just ready for the mosquitoes. And we don't grow from there. We are constantly meant to be in flow. We're fluid creatures. And we need to
Mhm.
always be in inquiry. And it's exciting. It's exciting.
My very favorite word is curiosity.
Yes.
Because here's the thing with curiosity, when you bring that to the table, you cannot sit in judgment.
No.
You cannot do both. In behavior analysis, that's called an incompatible behavior,
Mhm.
right? You cannot clap your hands and have your hands in the pocket at the same time. They are incompatible. If you are curious, you cannot be judgmental because there's no room for that. The one
Right.
stops the other. So if you find that you're judgmental, okay, get curious.
Yeah.
Why? Where did you get stuck? Why are you coming from that place of judgment? How does it serve you? How do you think it serves you? And then where could you get curious? And these are all fairly straightforward techniques that people can use for themselves to get out of that stuck place
Yeah.
of yelling at everybody and
Yeah.
being negative about things. I mean, we have had so much political
Oh.
upheaval in
Mm.
this area of the world in the last 6 months that and all these challenges and differences and so on. And what I'm finding is more and more people are yelling, less
Yeah.
people are listening, and there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and people aren't questioning it. And so we're building on this very murky water, as you described, that is full of things worse than mosquitoes. And you can't build anything good from there.
No.
And as people interacting with each other, if you're coming from a very negative
Hmm.
perspective, what do you anticipate getting back? It's not going to be good that comes back to you. And even if it was, you wouldn't be able to receive it.
Right.
That's the thing. We
It,
tend to think, I want to be a millionaire. Okay. I want $1 million.
million
What would you do with
dollars.
it?
Yeah.
What would you do with it?
Exactly. Have a plan.
Do you really? Do
Yes.
you really? And chances are, if you got $1 million, you'd make like some of the lottery winners, and you'd blow it because you don't actually want that money.
Hmm.
You just, you're saying it because it's the popular thing to
Yeah.
say, or you think you would, but you don't really want it. You don't have a plan. That's not actually you.
Mm.
It's somebody else's viewpoint. And now you're in a place of lack because you don't
Yeah.
have $1 million.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. You don't need it.
And
Why are you in that
when we
place of lack?
see certain people doing things, that are outright mean and nasty to other people, is don't put hate on the people. You can dislike the action. And I do believe in accountability. You can dislike the action, but it's understanding, why is that person doing that? From where are they coming from that they feel it's okay to hurt another?
You have to question that. And
Mm.
leaping back to the Forgotten Children
Yes.
book, kids, stuff happens to them, and
Yeah.
they don't know why,
Right.
and they think it's about them, they think it's because of them. But actually, as you get older, if you're able to work through those traumatic events,
Mm.
and trauma, by the way, is what your body does with it. It's
Mm.
not necessarily the event could be fine for one person and deeply
Yeah.
traumatic for another. It depends on where you're coming from and so on, what stage of development you're
Yeah.
at. That can make a difference too. But when kids start to work through that, if they're fortunate to work through it, they can see that wasn't about me.
Yeah.
That adult did those things because they were in this space
Yes.
and this was not good. And I learned this on my own journey. I had a very difficult childhood. And one of the features of that difficulty was my father was an ex-Marine and he had got PTSD, which was not diagnosable at that time. They didn't
Hmm.
know it existed. He had got shrapnel that was still inside,
Wow.
and he had a whole lot of temper issues and so on. He also had a partner, my mom, who was not ideally suited to him,
Uh-huh.
and they would set each other off in
Yeah.
unfortunate directions. So all of that's going on. I don't know that as a kid. All I know
Uh-huh.
is what I'm receiving.
Yeah.
When I was older and able to look at that, I could say, wow, where was he coming from?
Hmm.
And how must it have been to live with all that anger all the time?
Yeah.
What torture,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't become a question of forgiving him, it becomes a question of understanding.
Yes. The
Oh,
understanding
wow,
why.
look at where he was. It wasn't
Mm.
about me, I just
Yeah.
happened to be there,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And you can
Yes.
shift from that.
Yes.
So knowing is everything, understanding is more.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm passionate about human design,
Hmm.
getting it to the hands of as many people as possible so that we don't have to have this suffering stuff every day. It's overrated. You do not have
Yeah.
to struggle,
No,
right?
and
Life isn't a struggle.
there's certain amount of struggles that are challenges which help propel us further. We sell ourselves short. We don't know what we're capable of until we're put into a position to discover that ability. And then it's like, I never knew I could do this. And sometimes that struggle comes along that pushes you down that road. And we don't always have to have the struggle to ignite that, but generally that's what
Right.
happens, right? But instead of looking at something happening to you, it's happening for you. And if you choose to look at it positively, what am I to learn from this? What am I to become from this? um, you know, my choice of what happens because of this, not what happened to me. We're empowering ourselves then.
Sometimes it takes a little time to get to that place of what is it doing for me, but the trick is to get there eventually.
Yes.
And the thing with obstacles is you can either look at the obstacle and really focus on the obstacle, and there it is. It's an obstacle, and you're not kidding, right there. Or you could kind of say, well, what's around that side? What's around that side? What else can I do?
Yeah.
Acknowledging that it's there, but not focusing on it. Again, it takes time sometimes, depending on what the obstacle is or what the challenge is and where you are in your life. But it also depends on knowing where your strengths are, right? Like
Yes.
if you're a projector and your biggest problem at work is you keep volunteering information and they keep pushing back and you feel that you're not valued,
Uh,
it's because you're not valued. And it's because what you're offering is gold, but you're wrapping it in dirt and people don't see it, right? You
mm,
need to find a place where they will see what you can do, and then you can happily contribute. because you're invited to. And
Yeah.
it shifts, right?
Yes.
That whole energy exchange shifts. So it's knowing that and knowing where to put yourself. And funnily enough, how I got into human design in the first place was I was working on a project with someone who's very technically inclined, and I am not. And she was getting so frustrated with me. And she finally said, "Have you done your human design?" And I was like, "Really? I'm a science person, right? Why would I do human
Mm-hmm.
design?" And she said, "No, seriously, can you do it, please? Can you send me your chart?" So I was curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very curious. So I got my chart done. I sent it to her. And then being a behavior analyst, I'm kind of watching,
Yeah.
what's she doing? What's she doing? And I saw all these emotions flitting across her face, which I loved, was totally fascinated. And then I saw the aha moment.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, now you've got me hooked. What's going on? And she said, "I got it. I see where the problem is. I'm going to change a few things. It'll be fine." And she changed how we work together,
Mm-hmm.
timetables,
Mm-hmm.
expectations, so on and so forth. She tweaked a few things. And suddenly it was like all the puzzle pieces dropping into
Yeah.
place. And now we could work together smoothly.
Right.
I was fascinated.
Yeah.
Like, how did those few changes make
Yeah.
such a difference? You're kidding me. That
Mm-hmm.
can't be right. What is this devil magic? So I dived into learning because I'm like that. I have 4 degrees
Yeah.
because I like to learn. It doesn't make me a genius. It just means I like to learn those things and I
Curious.
got a piece of paper at the end, right? And in this case, I dove in the same way and said, well, what is going on here? How does this work? And, okay, I can't say, well, here's the hard, fast evidence, but it doesn't matter.
No.
What I can say is, on my Google business review, I have 35 5-star reviews for human design. So that's an indication. But
Yes.
the
That
biggest
is working.
indication is you test it,
Yeah.
find out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because my experience was like, I will never forget that moment
Yeah.
when she said, "Oh, I've got it. I know what to do." And just a couple of things. And it made a world of difference.
Right.
What else can it do? Wow.
Exactly.
And I never looked back. I dove in, it gets more complicated, and I like that. So I'm
Yeah.
diving in, dig, dig, dig.
You do so
Um,
well on Survivor of all the puzzles they have to do.
I love sleuthing. I
Yeah.
mean, behavior analysis,
Mm.
you're sleuthing to find out
Exactly.
what is that behavior. Typically it's with someone with autism. It can also be somebody with food problems, how they
Right.
eat. And okay, why are they doing that behavior? What do they want to do instead in order to get to the same endpoint? If you want attention, you can throw a major tantrum, or you can put your hand on the person's shoulder and say, "Excuse me," and wait until they're ready.
Yeah.
Both of them will work as a
Yeah.
child, but one will give you unpleasant attention. The other one will give you more pleasant attention, but to the child, it doesn't matter. It's still attention,
Yeah.
right? So knowing that, you can then sleuth. Where do we want to go from here? What's functional? So I put human design, behavior analysis, it's all in the same melting pot. It works together so nicely.
And it's allowing each person, like I have a grandson, that when he has a meltdown, it's a meltdown. And it's you have to let him spend it. I'm always saying, like, spend the emotion. Don't become emotional about it. Spend it. And then once he's spent, he's done. Right? Where
Right.
the other child with Down syndrome, he'll cry at something for a second and the next moment he's laughing because he's so present in his moment and he's on to the next moment. And so, they're chalk and cheese in that way. But with the other one, don't try and stop him. Don't try and interrupt it. Just let him go through it. And then once he's through it, he's okay. And I think it's like, no, we don't want to all burst out into tears somewhere, so sometimes we would like to, but it's allowing people to go through whatever process they need to go through to get through the other side. And sometimes you may have to remove yourself to go and have a game to go cry, right?
And being able to recognize what the emotion is. People
Yes.
are not typically taught to
Mm,
label emotions accurately. Did you know there are at least 72 different emotions?
wow.
There's an emotion wheel with all those on. There's nuances and so on. So you could say, well, I'm angry. but are you, or are you afraid?
You're right.
Or are you grieving?
Yeah.
Like where are you on
You're
that
frustrated.
spectrum?
Yes. Hmm.
There's a number of things that we simply lump under
Yeah.
a big umbrella. So for a child, if they can't articulate what's
Right.
going on, they will behave it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I work with kids with autism, it's like there are no bad behaviors.
Yeah.
There are, and really, I don't care what they're doing. They could be smashing your house. It's not a bad behavior. It's a very big behavior that is telling you they
Mm.
have a problem.
And
Now,
they don't know how
what
to
is the
articulate it.
problem?
Yeah.
What is the problem? How can we address that?
Yeah.
And that's the key because when you address that problem, the rest goes away.
Right.
You don't need to stop them smashing the house. They won't need to smash the house. So it's the sleuthing again.
Yeah.
I am absolutely Sherlock Holmes. In fact, I want to get one of those deer stalkers. I am a Sherlock Holmes type of person who
Right.
just likes to get to the root of, well, why is that happening? And how would you like it to look?
Mm.
Just because I think it might look that way better. I don't know. Does that work for you? What do
Uh-huh.
you want? It's your household. You're doing
Yes.
it. Or
Yeah.
as a coach, it's your life. What would you like next?
Yeah.
Let's see how we can get you there. I do my level best not to put my interpretation on someone else. If I had interpreted for my kids what I thought they would do as adults, neither of them would be doing what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
My youngest one had a tough time at school. Um, we went to many different schools because of travel, but some schools were awful, like absolutely horrendous, and
Mm.
others were brilliant.
Mm.
And what he learned from that was how not to teach and how to teach. And so
Uh-huh.
now he's graduating this summer as a high school teacher.
Wow. Great.
But I wouldn't have picked that for him.
No.
I would not have picked that out.
But the
I thought
experiences of
something
both
else.
sides of the coin are actually giving him a leg up beyond, the teaching skills because he'll understand and see things that others don't see. So, I mean,
Right.
that's the thing about life experience. There's the unpleasant experiences we go through, but we're going through them for a reason. And if we actually understand it, it's not out to get you or punish you or anything else. It's what can we do with this? How do we
Mhm.
take it forward?
Yeah.
Because maybe in the whole, there is always a reason for going through something.
He knows how to teach.
Yeah,
And he knows how to not teach
yeah.
or not how to teach. He knows these two sides.
Hmm.
But if I had said what I think as mom he would be doing, I would have put him in a different direction altogether.
Yeah.
I kind of had him pegged for being a chef, actually. I think
Hmm.
he'd be a really good chef and he loves cooking. But that wasn't his thing. For my oldest son, if I'd listened to his teacher, he wouldn't be in languages now.
Exactly.
And that would be criminal because he's great at languages.
Yeah.
He picks them up like a sponge. So, just knowing not to project you onto other people, I think is something I would love more people to do that, honestly, and see how it works for them
Hmm.
because
And
you can get out
see
of your own
see what
way.
they're good at. Oh, you're so good at that, and have them see that they're good at that because maybe it's not what they're going to do, but it's
Right.
something they put in their backpack. Well, I'm good at this. I never know where I'm going to use this, but I know I'm
Well, I
good at
taught
that.
I taught both of my kids how to sew and how to knit. And one of them made a coat from scratch, sewing.
Uh-huh.
He's done applique and all kinds of things. The other one prefers to knit. And in the winter, he'll sit and knit gifts for people, right? Like so he's not going to be a knitter, but
No.
he has that ability. Both of them have partners who don't know how to sew. So they do, they stitch
Yeah.
the buttons back on for them and
Right.
stuff like that. It's like there's skills that you can have in your toolkit that don't have to define you or be
Yeah, or even to
prominent.
be a part of your business. That the form of
Yeah,
knitting is a great form of meditation, right?
exactly.
Being
He loves
still,
it.
yeah,
In the
and
winter,
creativity in the sewing, so it's it isn't always about what you're going to apply in the business side of your life. It's maybe
mm,
that is your personal space, and that's what your go-to is. The world is too much. I'm going to go and pick up some knitting needles and just go one stitch at a time. And it's like
right.
but I think again is having our children explore. One thing about being a grandparent that's so wonderful is that you're not on the 24/7 treadmill, of raising a kid, breakfast, lunch, dinner, next. And when I get time with them, we have fun and we play cars, and each one of the cars is called something. And one of the police
Right.
cars is constantly going for donuts. We're trying to get him to go for yogurt, you know. And then we pick up the stuffies, and the stuffies are going somewhere. Like we go to China. What do we discover in China? We're going to the moon. We're going here. And it's like we go, and then it's like his imagination. You can see the eyes start going bigger. And like, all this imagination starts coming in. We get caught up in it and see where it takes us. And from a
Wonderful thing.
grandparent perspective, it's wonderful because bringing the childlike out with me, that you kind of suppress as you get older. And just that freedom to just explore and be curious and allow your mind just to dream as big as you can. And it's just
Mm.
wonderful to see.
Well, a question that I like to use periodically, I use it on myself periodically, is what would I do right now if doing it was fun?
Uh-huh.
And then if I don't have an option in that moment, then maybe, okay, so what am I doing right now that I can do differently so it's more fun?
Mm-hmm.
And what perspective can I shift? Because thinking of jobs, right? Jobs are difficult for people. And some of that is to do with society these days wanting instant gratification,
Yeah, yeah.
not being able to handle feedback or criticism, and also not being able to deliver it. This
Right.
is, these are all problems in the workplace. So people hop from job to job. I hated that place. They did all these
Mm.
things wrong. I didn't like that place. The common denominator is them. They keep hopping. So, what are you bringing to the party that's not helpful? And
Mm.
maybe you have a controlling boss. Often they are. People get promoted beyond their level of ability,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way they can handle that is to become controlling. So, you can complain about it, or you can find ways to help that person handle their feeling of lack of control, right?
Mm.
Subtle little ways. Call it manipulation if you want to, but if you are offering your boss reassurance as you do your work, they're less likely to micromanage you.
Uh-huh.
So that's a behavioral tool. Yes. It's a manipulation. Sure. We do that as human beings. It's not a negative thing, though.
Exactly.
You're helping that other person, so it helps you.
Yeah,
Everybody wins,
exactly.
right? But we just job hop and
Mm.
think, oh, it's not me, it's them. Well, maybe, but what could you do differently? How could it be fun? A good question.
Yeah, exactly. And do we actually allow the word fun or joy in onto our life? And I think so many people have forgotten actually how to experience joy, how to simply have fun. I call it letting the silly billies out,
Well,
right?
some people don't think you're supposed to do that.
Right. Well, I mean,
And
I don't know. No.
and right now I'm living in a culture that is a struggle culture. It's
Mm.
all about if you're not working three jobs, you're not trying hard enough.
Uh-huh.
And people who yell the loudest about not raising the minimum wage are the people who can least afford that, right? Like they don't
Exactly.
have anything, but they don't want other people to have anything. And it's
Right.
like, how did we get there?
Yeah.
And the whole mentality is, well, you've got to struggle or you're not trying hard enough. And if they come across somebody who's not struggling, well, it's easy for you. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, and if it is easy for me, why isn't it easy for you? What would you
Yeah.
like to do differently?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's put the judgment aside and start
Yeah.
getting curious. And there's no sort
Instead
of,
of the
well, you're in a bad.
resentment, what am
Mm,
I doing that works for me that could possibly work for you? So, obviously I'm doing something that you're looking upon and go and kind of resenting I'm doing. And it's like we put people up on a pedestal, and the moment we're up there, we start chopping the legs down.
mm,
Right. So, and it's like, why are you doing that? One moment they're up on the pedestal, which you've put them up there, not them. They didn't make that choice. You put them up there. Now you resent them for being up there.
right.
Right. And it's like, that is you, not them. They've worked hard to get there, right? They've
Well,
had their
they've
own
done what they
backbone.
needed to do.
They did
They've
what
done,
they needed to do. What do you need to do? And then what you need to do is know who you are. The very
right.
core of you,
And
who are you and how do you interact and how do you perceive the world?
values are one of
Mm,
those subjects that, okay, everybody trots out, you ask, what are your values? Well, integrity,
mm,
honesty, da, 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 the usual
yeah.
suspects, right? You have the lineup, they're all there. But here's a way to know what your values really are. Where do you spend your time and your resources.
Mm-hmm.
What are you putting those into?
Yeah.
Because whatever you're directing your focus, your time, and your resources to, those are your values. So if you spend your time tearing other people down,
Mm-hmm.
then this is what you value.
Yeah.
You value climbing to the top over the corpses of others.
Right.
Is that what you want to value? You could change that. You
Yeah.
don't have to be there, but that is where you are right now.
Right.
You know, if you spend all your money on recreation, that is valuable to you. That's
Mm-hmm.
what you value. I'm not judging that. That's your life. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have bandwidth to be judging other people
Right.
for this stuff. But what you value truly is where you show up. So
Yes.
if you value honesty, but then you lie,
Yeah.
you don't really value honesty.
Yeah.
You like the sound of it.
Right.
If you value integrity, but then compromise at the first opportunity, do you really? Or do
Yeah.
you value a more comfortable life? Like, let's be real about this,
Yeah.
because when you understand your values, what they actually are right
Yeah.
now, you can decide from there, is that where I want to be, or would I like to change now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have options. Knowledge is power, and understanding how you work is the most powerful form of knowledge. It's just, you can't beat
It's
it.
also so settling. You're not
Mm,
wasting so much time trying to be what everybody else wants you to be. You are just you're comfortable with yourself. That doesn't mean you're still not curious and inquisitive, but you're comfortable with who you are. As Popeye says, I
right.
am what I am, right?
Yes.
And you're happy with who you are. You don't need to apologize to anyone. You don't need to bend into a pretzel. You know this is your core value. This is your meaningful purpose. This is where your heart and soul is. This is how you interact with people. This is from where you come from. And there's something so settling about that, where I haven't got anything to prove to anyone.
That's a big thing, is not feeling the need to prove and not feeling the need to take up less space,
Right.
which is typically a woman's purview of trying not
Mm.
to take up less space, but not only. Um, but typically. And why?
Yeah.
You know, like, why would that be a good thing? How would you like to come out of that? So I know we're coming to the end of our time
Yeah.
together, but I would like to invite people listening, you know, if you want to explore this with me,
Hmm.
I am available to explore with you. And if you want to go into a whole coaching thing, we can. If you just want some ideas to kick off with in your own direction, also can. I have a book that you can get, a free body chart that you can get. So you have the tools. The question is, what do you want to do with them? And do you want help? But it's
Right.
all possible. You have choices,
And the choice is do you want to empower yourself? It's not about power, it's about empowerment. And you want
yes.
to empower yourself to know as much about you and your building blocks. And so you know when you are presenting yourself from a really honest core of who you are and not from an expectation that society has dictated.
Right. And overwhelm is typically because we've just said yes
Yeah,
to too many things that are no.
yeah,
And you become overwhelmed, and it looks like a lot of different things, but it's always dysfunctional. Obviously, it's overwhelm. And if you want to come out from under that overwhelm and recognize it for what it is and not go back into it, human design offers you a fabulous path for that. I wouldn't say
exactly.
it's the only way, but it's the best way I have found.
Hmm.
And it's a path I offer to other people with full heart. Like, I am so happy to bring this to people because I know it's a game changer.
It's the DNA of who you are. It's the genetic being of who you are, and you can't deny that. You can't change that, but you can play with that in a way that truly benefits and makes better choices in your life and helps you, put yourself forth in life in a way that serves you. Because if it's not serving you, you can't serve others. So
Right?
understand you and serve yourself first, and you'll be a better server of others in
Oh,
whatever way you're meant to be. But we
and
we
what
don't.
better exploration is there?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
So of
So
course you've got.
that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I hope it's not backwards for you.
And of course, you've got four other books here as well. The Immunity Code, which we did a show on, and we've got other ones here, the Business Life Universe, and of course, obviously, our Forgotten Children as well, which you contributed to. So, you're always taking what you know and sharing it, which is important because when we do know something, we don't want to keep it to ourselves. We do want to share it. Because the more we share it, the more we enlighten and illuminate the path for other people. Because that aha moment of, now I know why I do this, or I feel this, or I am
Right.
that. It is so utterly liberating. And the more that we encourage other people to know who they are as well, now you actually understand your own orchestra and you know which instruments to play together and which ones are not really, in the right tune. So it's important that we know. And I think I've said this all along with any form. This is one form, there's other forms as well. I say do them as well, because the more you understand about yourself, the more you'll understand about your meaningful purpose, why you're here, and whom you're here to serve with what that you have, the gift that you are. Because we've all got a gift, haven't we?
Oh, at least several, actually.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're here for a reason.
Yes.
And so why not play and discover what that is? You are not here to work for somebody else and make them money. That is
Yeah.
that is not a life. And you're not here to repeat the same day over and over again for 80 years and call that a life. That's
Yeah.
not really, you miss the point if you're
Yes.
doing that,
Yeah.
honestly. And you have an opportunity now. So, my offer is let's play. Let's take
Yeah.
that opportunity and see what's there.
Yes. Now, where do people find the books? Where do they find you and your social medias?
So, a good place to look for me is Michaela GS. Is it an underscore? It's a link tree link.
On your link
And that
tree. Yes.
link tree, and it takes you to all the other places. I have a website, gaffenstone.com, and you can get your free chart from there. A quick heads up, the homepage got accidentally erased. The website still works. Just look at the top and you'll find a chart. Um, where else? Amazon, I have two author pages actually. I have one that is Michaela Gaffenstone, and that has my aligned and unapologetic Human Design Guidebook. It also has the Immunity Code book. And then I have Mickey Gaffenstone, Mikki, and that's where you'll find Forgotten Children. I think there's three different books from Business Life and Universe. Um, yeah, I have about seven books out now. So between those two author pages on Amazon, they're available there as well. Um, Social media, I'm usually found on Facebook, but I will also show up on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm not on the other ones. Just look up Michaela Gaffenstone and you'll find me.
And of course, you have your own podcast.
I have been doing a podcast. It's on hiatus right now, but you can look up episodes that are already out there. There's like 52 episodes of navigating complicated relationships, funnily enough, that cover
Your
everything from
forte.
human design, behavior analysis, like all the things that I'm bringing in.
And that's called inspiredchoicesnetwork.com
That's where you
slash
can find it.
podcast. So
Yes.
they can find you there, and I have to do my chart again. Because I think last time it was done and then just kind of thrown away. We didn't take it any further. You're this and that's that. But it's
Right.
kind of understanding more the depths. And the thing is, we're not just a label. That is kind of the DNA of your human design. But what else? All the lovely, tentacles out there that, threads and channels that define us even more. And the more we understand about ourselves, the more at home we are with ourselves, and the more at home other people be with us.
We're all too big for labels.
Yes,
We're really
exactly.
too big for labels.
Yeah,
Labels don't help. They just tell people where to pigeonhole you. And really,
yeah,
that's kind of old, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. We are so much more. As I said, we are the entire orchestra if we wish to be. Which instrument are we? How do we play it? And who do we join with? And the more we know about ourselves, the more at home we are with ourselves, and the more we are to other people. And really, quite honestly, I'm very much of the advocacy of if you're angry, if you're hurt, if you're frustrated, if you're fearful, if you're lost, go and make your own self discovery. of who you are, why you are. And in that understanding, you'll find your path. And there is frustration and the
Absolutely.
fear and the feeling of not belonging or being lost will drop off exponentially. And then you really will find that beautiful gift of who you are and what you're here to do. But you've got to be proactive in your own life. It's not pointing a finger and saying everybody else. It's all those fingers pointing back at you saying, well, what are you going to do about it? So this is
Right.
something you can do about it. Discover your human design. Take that
And I
first
would
step.
like to take I would like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for having me back again.
Oh, always a
And it's
pleasure.
always a pleasure to talk with you. I love how we explore things together
Mm.
and happy to look at your design sometime. Thank you so much for today.
Oh, thank you so much. And for everyone else out there, female, male, whatever, that's just who are you
Actually,
from
add
the
in the
inside out?
whatever as well, because however you
Yeah,
identify, it's all good.
yes,
Human design is human.
exactly, exactly. And it's like that's who you really are. And it just embrace yourself and all the glory that you are, all the flawsome that you are, but know who you are. Please know who you are because that's who you're bringing to the table of life. And the more you know about yourself, the more comfortable we're going to be with you because you're comfortable with yourself. So until next time,
Absolutely.
folks, thanks a lot, Nikki. Until next time, folks, bye for now. 1,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life. And we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.